Small. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dave Harden. I am going to be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshop on Social Security filing strategies and tax strategies. I just need to do a quick sound check before we get started at the top of the hour, which is just in a couple minutes. If you could use the chat function, let me just type a welcome message to you so you know where it is. There you go. If you could just give me a heads up. I'd love to hear what state you're in if you want to do that. We usually have people from all over the country. It's always nice to see. Or just tell me audio is good, or just give me a thumbs up if that's all you want to do. And then we'll know that you can hear me. We have several different platforms this evening that we got to check. So if you're, I guess the main two are YouTube, Facebook. So if you're on one of those, if you could just give me a thumbs up and let me know. Kansas, thanks so much, Executive Director. Appreciate that. Karen says, hi from Maryland. I grew up in Maryland. Karen, what part? I lived in PG County. My wife lived in Annapolis. Lisa from Texas, Missouri. So we've got all YouTube stuff. There's some Facebook stuff. Listening from Buffalo, New York. Awesome. Indiana. Great. North Carolina, that's always a wonderful city. There's a Michigan. Great. Florida, we are spread out. No Californias. We almost always have people from California or from Washington or Oregon. Baltimore County, good deal. I know right where you are. All right. Well, thanks so much for your help. It looks like we are good. Hey, Allison from Florida, appreciate it. My tech team is in Florida, so I appreciate that. Philly, PA. Thank you much. I am in Pennsylvania myself this evening, so it's nice to have somebody from my state. So appreciate it. That's awesome. Cleveland, Ohio. Thanks, Chrissy. Appreciate it. All right. I normally have some trivia, but we had a little bit of technical problems this evening, and I don't think I have time to get past maybe even one question. So we'll do that another time. But we will get started here in just about 3.5 minutes. Maybe I could do a little bit of. I hate to do it too soon because they're just most people aren't on yet. But maybe you guys can help me out. We're going to do a Q&A at the end of the evening here. I always do one, and it will help us. If you know the question that you want to ask her, just ask it. Put it right in the chat function that you just used. Just type it out and put it in there. You don't have to wait. Our tech team will gather those up. So at the end of the workshop, we can just jump in and start answering those questions. There's no delay. That always helps us. Now, you're welcome to put them in afterwards, but that will help us keep things moving along. All right. Any interested to hear, is anybody filing or thinking about filing this month for their Social Security? Always like to see this. There we go. No. Just doing some forward planning. That always is smart. Well, good deal. All right. If you have a question, again, just type her in. Take your time. You can do that at any point now or throughout the workshop. We'll gather those up and do them right at the end, right at the beginning of the Q&A, right at the end of the workshop. All right. We Admiral Park, New York. I don't know where Averill Park is. Is it of the Hudson Valley area? I don't know where that is. John's 4 months away. Good deal. I totally get it. Great time to plan. December. Good for you. Good, Vicky. Appreciate it. It is always an important time. We're going to do lots of stuff on filing and lots of stuff on how it works and lots of stuff on taxes, which are, I don't know if you plan on getting tax information. I hope you did. It's really the biggest issue surrounding Social Security today. Allison's going to file in November too. Wow. 20 minutes east of Albany. Good deal. I know about where that is. Good deal. Okay. Carolyn's got her question all ready to go. All right. We are right on time. Let me pull up the. All right. Good deal. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dave Harden. I am going to be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshops version of Social Security filing strategies and tax strategies. Welcome. We're grateful that you're here. We hope that you enjoy it. Let me take care of a little housekeeping, and then we'll get right into it. I'm often asked, how long does this take? So you can prepare yourself. This is about an hour and 20 minutes or so, give or take. Sometimes I'm a little faster, sometimes a little slower. It depends. One of the ways that will help us speed this up is if you can help us at the end. We're going to do a Q&A, give you a chance to see exactly if you've got specific questions that you want to ask me. We're happy to take those and answer them for you. Best thing you can do for us is put your questions in ahead of time. You can do those right now. You can do them through the workshop. We certainly can do them at the end. But if everybody waits to the end, we won't have much. I see lots of people putting questions in, so that's not going to happen. All right, let's get started here. I'll ask our tech team to pull up our actual workshop. Oh, maybe it's already up. There we go. There we go. All right, maybe a little more formally, my name is Dave Harden. I'm a registered financial consultant and RFC. That's it's a designation that comes from the IARC, the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. It's a planning designation for retirement. It's planning and retirement planning and asset management. I also carry the NSSA, the National Social Security Advisory designation. That's the only college accredited designation for Social Security in the country. It is tough to get. It is less than 2,000 people in the country have it. I'm stunned that more don't, because I don't know how you do any kind of planning without dealing with Social Security and taxes, which is what the NSSA deals with at a very high level. I'm also the author of the Social Security workbook that you're going to receive at the end of the workshop. Very proud of that. I think we're in our 8th or 9th edition. We update it every year. And there's always changes. And you'll get the benefit of the most recent ones in the edition that you're going to receive. Now, I often get somebody that says, I didn't get the workbook. I was on your web. Well, if you don't stay till the end, you're not going to get the link. But we're going to give you that link. Just bear with us and hang in there, and we will get it for you. Okay. What else? Again, the SEC requires me to explain a little bit more about me because I am a licensed fiduciary advisor. I carry a Series 65 issued by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, administered through FINRA, and it makes me a fiduciary advisor. Now, I own a registered investment advisory firm called City Center Advisors. I'm very proud of that. I've owned it with my son. It's just maybe the joy of my life to have been able to be in a business that my son and I have been able to do together. It's actually wonderful to see him mature and become just an incredible advisor and administrator and manager as well. He is just he's the apple of my eye and the pride and joy of my life. Not many people get to do that where they get to work with their son or daughter, and it is just such a wonderful thing. We have been incredibly blessed and successful. 1,299 as of this morning client accounts spread across 43 states. We used to do business just in one, but COVID changed that dramatically. We long before COVID, we were doing business outside of that one state, but COVID really forced us to do business nationally and to look at it more as a national company, and we've done that. You said why only 43 states? We just haven't had client opportunities in those other seven, but I'm sure we will. They're smaller states usually, not a lot of population. That being said, I want to put you a little bit of ease. We do not intend to talk about investment advisory practice tonight. We're not going to talk about stocks or bonds or where you should be investing. That's not what we're here about. We're going to concentrate on Social Security and taxes, but it's required that I explain this to you. All right. Why are we here? Why is Social Security such a big deal? Well, it's pretty simple. Baby boomers are really turning that age. Over 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day. That's going to continue, by the way, for probably the next 10 or 11 years. Now, not all of those are going to be baby boomers by that point, but there is enough people that is what's going to happen. 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month, 3.64 million last year. It's a lot of people hitting this age, and it's become really apparent that information on Social Security and taxes has become just incredibly important. So what does it mean? What does Social Security mean to you? Well, look, 65% of retired middle-income Americans derive more than half of their retirement income from Social Security alone. It's a huge part of our retirements. And then since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions, not 84,000 people, mind you, 84,000 companies. Some of those companies had multiple hundreds of thousands of employees. They, for years, offered a pension. My grandfather had a pension. My stepfather had a pension. My stepfather had two. But this said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. It's too expensive. And then 46.1% of Americans, listen to this, 46, almost half of us, statistically now, pass away with less than enough money to fund our own funerals. That's a huge deal. I'm not talking about 40, that's almost half. This isn't the lowest level income numbers of us that started off with nothing and ended up with nothing. These are people in this number that started their retirement with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not more, thousands of dollars, but ended up essentially broke. Now, why is that important to us? Because if you don't know how that's happening, how in the world do you prevent it from happening to you? And you might not realize how susceptible every one of us is to this. Now, the first question that you have to ask yourself when you're thinking about filing for Social Security or planning your retirement for that matter is, how long am I going to live? None of us have crystal balls. None of us know exactly how long that's going to be. But here's some statistics. This comes from the census. If you're a single male today, you have a 50% chance of living to 85. Now, that probably doesn't surprise anybody, but you have a 25% chance, 1 in 4, you're living to 92 or older. If you're a single female age 65, 50% chance or more that you're living to 88, 25% chance or more that you're living to 94. And then if you're a couple age 65, two people who love each other, who care about each other, you're the male in that couple, you have a 50% chance of living to 92. You just doubled your odds of making it to 92. And then if you're the female, 50% chance you're living to 97, 3 years short of 100. These are crazy numbers. You might ask why in the world does a couple live longer? And it's really simple. Love. No, it's not that at all. It is because if you care about somebody, you want them to be okay. My sister, who's a year and a half younger than me, passed away in 2015 from skin cancer. We were those stupid kids in the 60s and early 70s who, first day of summer, I doubt I'm the only person that ever had this happen to me or that did this. But first day of summer, we ran out not to get tan because we're so fair skinned. We ran out to get burned because we knew it was going to happen. So let's get it over with. The only way to get tan was to get burned. Let's do it quick and get it over with and not have it happen on July 4th. And we did that year after year after year. Well, she paid a horrible price for that. But what's that got to do with living longer? Well, my wife cares about me. I'm really grateful for that. Wouldn't it be terrible if she didn't? But she watches. I mean, I can see her sometimes. I'll be putting my shirt on in the morning, and she'll be checking out my back to see if there's something on there she needs to look at because she's super. And if she sees something, she doesn't ask me. She goes and sets an appointment up with the dermatologist, who she makes me see twice a year anyway, because she doesn't want that to happen to me. That causes me to live longer, and I'm grateful for it because I know it means that she cares about me. But the end result of that is that I'll probably live longer. That did not happen. My sister didn't get that. Somehow it was missed. So, by the way, anybody hear about longevity? Anybody hear about the Moderna drug that was announced today that is in final trials with the FDA? That is a vaccine for skin cancer, for melanoma. The stock went up something like 128% in an hour. That's what's happened today. And there's other stuff out there that's happening. And that was an AI-driven result, by the way, that they found that and have been working on it through AI. This is Ethel Carterham. She's the oldest living person in the world. She just turned by 116. She's not 115 anymore. She's from England. She has lived a wonderful life. But, there is this long line of people from Japan and Jamaica and Indonesia that have lived a really long time. And every one of them, by the way, people go, well, what about, all the time I look at these charts and everybody's from someplace other than America. Well, the second oldest living person in the world, only 3 months younger than Ethel, is an American. Her last name is Whitehead. We're Americans. 15 years ago, if you looked at the list of the oldest 100 people in the world, there was nary an American on it. Now it's chock full of us. We are living longer. Now, not us. We're certainly living longer, but our parents and even our grandparents are living longer still. Many of you know that. They call the baby boomer generation the sandwich generation for a reason. Some of us are taking care of our parents, and our children at the same time are living in the basement, and we're sandwiched in between them. It's just who we are. Maybe we just love too much. I don't know. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. Benefit basics, strategies for married couples, strategies for divorced individuals, strategies and options for widows and widowers. Now, if you're thinking I'm single, what do you got for me? Social Security was created for you, the single person. But if you're worried, is there anything for me? There's some things that are going to apply in here, but do you see that thing called taxes? Man, do you have to pay attention there. Now, so do you if you're married or divorced or widowed. But if you're single, taxes are a big, big deal. And then coordinating benefits and why that is so important to you. All right. Well, basics of Social Security. How does it work? How do you qualify? Well, to qualify for Social Security, you had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid in and your employer matched that. And to qualify, you need at least 10 years of work history, 40 credits. Now, you get a credit for every quarter. A quarter is January, February, March, April, May, June, and so forth. Every one of those quarters gives you an opportunity to earn 1 credit. Mind you, you could earn $100,000 in the first quarter of the year. You need 4 credits. You can earn 4 credits. That only gets you 1 credit. Doesn't matter how much you earn in that quarter. To get the 4 credits, you had to earn a certain amount this year. That amount is $1,890. That's for a quarter. That's on average less than $8,000 a year. Now, that qualifies you. It doesn't get you a very big benefit, but it's enough to qualify you for a lifetime benefit. Then it's also important to know that when they're figuring this number out and calculating your full retirement age benefit, they're going to use your highest 35 years of earned wage income to calculate the benefit. Why is that important? Because if you don't have 35 years, you don't need it. You only need 10 years, technically, 40 quarters, and that could be spread over 50 years. You don't need them in a row. They don't have to be 4 in a row to get a year. 1 quarter equals 1 credit. You get 40 credits. It's a 10-year work history. That's all they need. But if you are, let's say you have 30 credits, there are 30 years worth of credits. They're going to take those 30 years of income, because it's the only 30 years you have. They're going to prorate it, and proration is a big deal. This year you only need $1,890. In 1983, I think that number was $214 for a quarter. But that would be prorated today to be, I think it's 4.5 times as much. So $200 times 4.5 is $900. So still cheaper than it is today. But once you have those credits, you've got a benefit. But let's go back to the 30 years. You've got 30 years of credits. They can't add any more because you don't have any more. So they're going to prorate each one, add them all together. That's your total wage income for the 30 years that you worked. And then they're going to divide those to get your annual average benefit or average contribution. And they're going to divide it by 35 years. Wait, Dave, you just said 30. Yeah, you work 30, but they're still going to divide by 35. This is why filing early before your FRA could be a huge mistake. For some people, it might be a mistake filing before 70 because you don't have all those years in. If you know much about math, you start adding zeros to a division problem, the answer is going to be way less. The average is going to be lower dramatically. That's how it works. So getting those extra years could make a huge difference long-term for you. It's why when you're ready to file, or you're thinking about filing, or you think about filing early, the first thing you should do is check to make sure you have 35 years. And if you don't, you really got to do some math here to figure out whether that makes sense or not. In 2025, a sort of a serious wrong, what was called the WP and the GPO, the windfall elimination provision, and the government pension offset were eliminated. Prior to that, for decades, if you were a government worker and you opted out of Social Security, but you retired in your 50s and then you went to work in the private sector and you earned a Social Security benefit after 10 years. But when you went to file for Social Security because you had your pension, they would often, almost always lower your Social Security number, if not even eliminate it. And if you were a widow or a widower, and you had that situation where you inherited a spouse's government pension, but you had your own Social Security, then when you inherited that pension, the government would look at it and say, well, look, you only contributed to Social Security for 20 years. Maybe you were for early part of your Marriage, you were a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, and you didn't have that many years. Maybe you only had 20. Well, they'd look at that and say, because you didn't have an arbitrary number for them, but it was the number 31 years, they would they couldn't touch your pension that you inherited from your spouse, but they would reduce your Social Security that you paid for and your employer paid for arbitrarily and say, sorry, we're going to cut this down significantly and way more often than people realize, take it away completely, particularly and based on how big that government pension was. Now, mind you, you paid for both of them. Your spouse paid for one, and he took a lesser amount, or she took a lesser amount to give you a joint payout. So you earned it. It was paid for, and you paid for the Social Security. But they did this, and it was incredibly unfair. So last year, January of 2025, government finally said, look, this is unfair, and we're going to stop. Not only did they didn't just stop, they actually paid it back to people not very far, just to December of 2023. But you should have, if you had this happen to you, you've already gotten a check for the difference, and then you move on and you've got both your things. This happened to government workers, to people who had military pensions, to railroad workers that had pensions that were covered by the government, to state, local, county governments, to school districts, probably the most common one, other than government employees, the school districts, who opted out in favor of their own pension system, but then put you in harm's way in terms of Social Security if you didn't stay there forever. All right. How does Social Security work? You contribute 6.2% of your income up to a total income this year of $184,500. If you earn $200,000, the last $15,500, we don't take Social Security out, and your employer doesn't pay on that. There's an employer match of that brings it up to 12.4%. Now, 12.5% is 1/8. So 1/2 of 1/4. It's a lot of money. 1/8 of your paycheck, of every single paycheck that you've ever earned. For me, that goes back to when I was 14, working at the lunch counter at Woolworths, washing dishes. It happens. It's a huge amount of money over your lifetime, and it adds up. And then it's also important to understand that today's contributions cover today's benefits. What do I mean by that? Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. It's been that way since its inception in 1935. President Roosevelt not only signed this into law, but he wrote the bill. And then when he presented it to Congress, it specifically said that this would start paying out immediately. As soon as it had money in the coffers, it would start paying out to the people who were already 65, even though they had never put a dime in. Mind you, that's a big deal. So it took these people. Why did it do that? Because it was the middle of the Depression and seniors were getting kicked bad, really bad. So he wanted to help them. And it did. It almost single-handedly created a middle class in our country. It's not hard. It's almost, I don't think most of us think about this, but if not for Social Security, I mean, before Social Security, middle class was ugly. It was ugly. It wasn't much different than lower class. It meant you had a job. Didn't mean much more. And if you couldn't work, you immediately went to the bottom of the tank. This changed that dramatically. It changed everything. It's changed our country's finances and economics. It's made a huge difference. But that pay-as-you-go system had a catch. It required that the next generation would pay for the generation before them, and so on and so forth. And it did. It worked wonderfully. Partially, it worked wonderfully because in 1935, at Social Security's inception, 65 was a ripe old age. The average lifespan in 1935 was 63. There weren't that many people in it. So it wasn't that hard to cover them. And then our parents' and grandparents' generations were much smaller than ours. Each generation was successively larger and larger and larger than the previous one. In fact, baby boomers were so large that at some point in the early in the Reagan administration, there were 40 of us, 40 people paying into Social Security for every single recipient, which brings us to the problem: solvency. Anybody know how many millennials there are? I mean, there's 77 million baby boomers. There are only 81 million millennials. That's not 40 to 1. And that brings the problem in. That's why during those years, they built this trust fund and they poured money into it. But it brings up the question of solvency. What's going to happen? And this is beaten around the bush every single day in the news. There's tons of bad news riveted around this because it's clickbait. And I want to explain that to you in a second. But let me explain what the circumstances are, give you the facts so that you understand. And I think I have good news for you tonight. Maybe really good news for you. But 1983 was a really important year for Social Security and baby boomers. First off, it's the first year that Congress defined that we were in the red. Not then, but they saw it. They projected it, that we're going to run out of money. And they blamed it on us, on you and me, on people born between 1943 and 64. And certainly after that. I mean, there are plenty of people born after 64. But they saw that as the baby boomers as a definitive problem. So they sent you a letter. I don't know if you remember the letter. I got the letter in August of 1983. My wife got it the same day I got mine. They weren't stuck together, but they were in the same handful of mail. And I remember reading the letter after dinner and sitting down with her and going, wow, this is crazy. Because it said something, I'm going to paraphrase. I don't have the letter in front of me. It's 43 years ago. But the letter said something like this: since Social Security's inception in 1935, full retirement age, FRA, has always been at age 65. But if you're born between 1943 and 54, it's not going to be that anymore. It's going to be 66. And if you're born after 1954, for every year, add 2 months. So if you're born in 1955, 66 and 2 months. If born in 56, 66 and 4 months, and so on until you reach birth year 1960, where it reached 66 and 12 months, and that's actually 67, and they capped it there. That was it. I remember going to work the next day, having a conversation. This is a big deal to me, not for maybe why you thought. I wasn't that the reason that I got that letter wasn't because I didn't think it was because they were running out of money. I thought there was a different problem, but I'll tell you what that is in a second. But I remember having a conversation, and probably at the coffee urn, that's what they used back then, and didn't get good coffee until the late 90s. And then I remember somebody close by overhearing us and saying, what are you guys worried? First time in my life I ever heard this. What are you guys worried about Social Security for? It's never going to be around when you retire anyway. You better start saving. And I was like, wow. Now I've heard that a bunch. I have heard that repeated over and over in little different variations of it for the last 40 some years. But here's the thing: Social Security is not broke at all. And in fact, the benefits today are way better than they were in 1983. So what's the problem? Well, by the way, you're wondering, what was I thinking? I wasn't worried about it running out of money. I was worried about how many more letters I'm going to get. Is the next letter going to say not 67, but 68? and the one after that, not 68, but 70, and then maybe 72, where I'm going to have this moving target of when I'm be able to collect my Social Security. That was what I was worried about. Turns out that didn't happen either. Now here's the bad news and the good news sort of together. This little thing has been corrected, and just in the last 2 months, the Social Security Administration and Congress put out their annual estimate of when Social Security is going to run out of funds. By the way, not run out of funds, but the trust fund is going to run dry. So the trust fund is important, but it's not Social Security. And last year they estimated 2035. This year, the combined estimate is 2034 fourth quarter, so October of 2034. It lost 3 months. Now I don't like that, but it is what it is. But here's the thing: it doesn't go broke. It simply has enough to pay at that point 83 cents on the dollar. Meaning, and this is the good news, Social Security is not going to stop paying anybody. What they have to do is figure out how to come up with the 17 cents on every dollar to be able to pay you your full earned benefit. Keyword, earned benefit. There are 4 basic proposals. By the way, can pay that 83 cents on the dollar almost, well, longer than any of us will be alive by a mile. Estimates are before that would be affected further, it would be somewhere around 70 more years past that. So 2021 or 2021, I'm sorry, 2105 is the estimate. I don't think anybody, wouldn't it be wonderful if we lived that long? At the rate that AI is fixing this, maybe we will, but I don't think I'm going to be here. Anyway, there are 4 basic proposals. There's actually 5 basic proposals to fix this. This is important, and I'm going to run through these, and then I'm going to tell you why I am convinced that this is okay, and that we are not in trouble, and that this is not going to happen. Here are the basic proposals. Increase the minimum retirement age. This doesn't fix the problem. It might fix it a little bit for your kids and grandkids. It won't fix the problem for us. Increase the full retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. Again, won't fix the problem. Here's one that definitely fixes the problem. Increase the payroll tax. That 6.2% that I talked about that your employer matches, OMB the Office of Management Budget did a study. They do a study every couple of years on this. 5 years ago, did a study that said a 1-point increase would have solved the problem for the next approximately 68 years. That's a big deal, right? A 1-point increase, half a point to you, half a point to the employer. Congress didn't act on it. Still hasn't acted on it. But there's hope. Now, it would take more than that now, but it is fixable. There's one more that is absolutely a huge deal. This one alone fixes 75% of the problem for a really long time, like 100 years. But it actually pushes back the problem of running out of money from 2034 fourth quarter to somewhere around 2050 before they would have to deal with it with something else. That is uncapping the income collection point. Right now, 184,500. If we raise that, I think they said 2 million. It basically pushes the problem for 20 some years or more, and then gives us all sorts of time to come up with solutions. By the way, if they capped it at 5 or 10 million, solves the problem completely. No problem. No problem, foreseeable future. So why not do that? Well, we've been talking about that for more than a decade too. They just haven't done it. Here's the thing that I want to encourage you with. And I'm sorry for spending so much time on this, but I'm not, because it's so critical. Here's the thing: Congress is serious. For the first time, I watched about a month and a half ago. They had a joint meeting. Congress, both houses of Congress met in committee with something like 60 senators or 60 congressmen and senators who sat in, who weren't actually on the panel or in the thing. They were sitting in the gallery, and they allowed them to speak. I was really impressed. For the first time, they're actually looking at the problem and looking at solutions, not just interviewing people and say, well, what's going on and this, that, and the other, and looking like they're doing oversight, but nothing. They're actually coming up with answers and things. And they have proposals that they're going, what they're telling us now is that they believe they're going to propose, that their proposals are going to act in early 27, next year, first quarter of next year, fiscal quarter of next year, in early 2027. They're going to propose these and vote on them and take them in. And it's the first time that's happened. Nothing ever gets out of committee. And they're dead serious about it because they realize their back's up against the wall. If they don't do this, it's just going to be a bigger problem and bigger problem and bigger problem. So really encouraged by that. But here's the other thing that I'm really encouraged by. I was at a conference a year ago, and I heard I was at it was an actual financial planning conference, but they did take or workout sessions with experts, and they had a panel of four people. Two of them were former directors of the Social Security Administration. Those are big jobs. I mean, hundreds of thousands of employees. It's a big, big job. These guys are smart. One from each party, by the way. They did a Q&A at the end, and you can imagine the first question was about solvency. What's going to happen? Here's what the first one said. During COVID, in the first couple of weeks of COVID, Congress passed a bill, I think unanimously, to fund a relief project worth 5 trillion, trillion with a T as in trouble, $5 trillion of relief for COVID. Came in PPP loans to businesses that weren't even in trouble. It went to individuals like you and me who may or may not have had issues, but they didn't want to take any risks. They wanted to keep the economy going because of that, 2 weeks to stop the spread thing that basically shut down our country. So they did all of this stuff. Guess who paid for that? Well, you and me. It just went to their debt. But here's the thing. Not one single person in America had contributed a dime to a fund to cover that $5 trillion. Every single one of you, every single American that qualifies for Social Security has paid into it, sometimes for 40 or 50 years. And you didn't pay into it randomly. There's actually a schedule. If you make this much and then you pay this much and then you receive this much, it was a contract. This isn't something at the end that you get because, oh, we'll just give you this. It's a contract based on your contributions. How in the world do they come up with $5 trillion to solve that problem? By the way, one of the easy answers is they go into debt to pay this until they figure it out, which may or may not happen. But that's the first guy. Here's the second guy that I think is the most compelling. Our country, greatest country on earth, financially and fiscally, the greatest country on earth. Nobody compares to us. Nobody even comes close to us. And it's so over the top that our country's currency is used for everything. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you want to buy oil in the Middle East, it's traded in dollars. If you want to buy gold in Russia or platinum in Russia, which they're famous for, it's traded in dollars. That's the whole system is done that way. Our entire country, our whole economy is based on our currency and the full faith and credit of the United States of America, because there isn't enough gold in Fort Knox to cover 1/15th of our currency, not even 1/20th of our currency. So, what's the value of our currency? It's the full faith and credit of our country, of the United States of America. If our government reneged on paying its citizens a contract for Social Security, basically said, "Oh no, we're not going to pay that to you. We're going to cut it." They estimated that within 2 weeks, our economy would fall apart because nobody would use our currency anymore, because they couldn't trust that we're not going to just do that to somebody else. If we'll do that to our own citizens, why wouldn't we do that to anybody? It can't happen. It would be disastrous economically across the face of the globe. And that's why he said there is nothing to worry about. They might threaten you with it. So you ask the question, so why do they talk about this? You can go on YouTube, you can see there's this guy, it's not just one, there's 50 of these people, but there's this one guy that drives around in Winnebago and stops at beaches and places like that, Mount Rushmore, and he gives talks about Social Security. You know what his credentials are? Nothing. He has a Winnebago, but he gets 1 million views every time he talks. You know what he says? It's going broke. You better get your benefit now. Take it as early as you can at 62, and just close your eyes and hope it lasts as long as it can. Now, he is pitching fear. Don't misunderstand me. I hate this, but fear drives clicks, and clicks drive his income. It's how he affords the Winnebago. I just need you to understand, some of us are being manipulated, some of us more than others. But look, clicking it's an art today. I could get 1 million clicks. It's not the business I'm in. I'm here to help people understand and get through retirement. All right. Sorry to take so long on that, but it is what it is. All right. So how are your benefits determined? You get your full retirement age benefit at either 66 or 67. If you take it early, you get less. You can take it as early as 62, but you're not going to get 100% of your full retirement age benefit. You're going to get 75%. And if you take it later, you delay, you get this thing called DRCs, delayed retirement credits. They're actually 2/3 of 1% per month for every month you delay, but that adds up to 8% per year. 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% at 70, you would get 132%. The difference between taking it at 62 at 75% and waiting and taking it at 70 is 177%. It's like getting a full retirement age benefit at 100% and a 62-year-old benefit at 75% on top of that. It's a huge amount of money, and you've got to factor that in when you're making your decision. All right, 3 distinct Social Security benefits. Your benefit, entirely based on your work history. A spousal benefit, I've been married almost 50 years. My wife and I have been married for a really long time. But her spouse, if she wants a spousal benefit, she qualified for one. If she takes a spousal benefit, she didn't contribute to a nickel of that. That's all my contributions. She gets that because she's my spouse. Now, she has her own benefit that she contributed for. And then widower or survivor benefits. These benefits were paid for by the deceased worker, not by the surviving spouse. Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015, I'm going to spend only a second on this because it really doesn't apply except for one tiny thing. Basically, this changed Social Security for married couples and divorced spouses. It created 3 distinct sets of rules based on when you were born. If you're a widow or widower, it didn't change a thing for you. Or you're single, didn't change a thing for you. First category, I'm not going to cover because you would have been born prior to May 1st, 1950. You're already 76 years old. So doesn't, if you haven't filed for your benefits yet, you've made a mistake. Born after May 1st, 1950, before January 2nd, 54, you're already 72. Again, you should have filed. But if you're born after January 2nd, 54, I'm guessing everybody on here fits into this category. Um, the ability to go in and file what's called a restricted application for your benefit, that's look, it used to be I could go in on my 62nd birthday, file a restricted application for only I'm sorry. Let's do this with me and my wife. I go in, I file, but I immediately after filing, I immediately suspend my benefit. So what changed for me? Nothing. I filed and I suspended. So what does that do for my spouse? It would have allowed her to go in and file a restricted application for only the spousal benefit. And she could have collected the spousal benefit starting at 62 and waiting till 70 even before she switched to her own when it was much larger. It was a really great way to get a bunch of extra benefits. It is totally not able to do anymore. So what's the difference here? What changed here is they added a thing for people born after January 2nd, 54 called deemed filing. And deemed filing is the thing that is still prevalent to you and me. Deemed filing means if you go in to file now, you could tell them, I want this benefit or that benefit. They don't even listen to you. When you're done filling out all the paperwork, they're going to go to their computer. They're going to singularly pick the benefit that is best for you in terms of its amount on the day that you file. And that's the one you get, like it or leave it. Here's the problem. It may be the worst thing in the world for you. Picking that benefit might hurt you later on by a huge amount because once you filed with deemed filing, you have filed and you are done. That's what's changed for us who are born after 1954 or 54 later. And because of that, this is no longer a question of strategy as much as timing. And timing is the thing that's going to make the biggest difference for you. All right, considerations for married couples. To qualify for a spousal benefit, you must have been married for a full 1 year. Married less than that, you don't qualify. Primary worker must have filed now. So for my wife to get a spousal benefit, she can only get that when I take my benefit. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than 1/2 of the primary worker's PIA. PIA is just a way, it's primary insurance amount. It's the mathematical equation, it's in the workbook, by the way, that explains how you get your full retirement age benefit. And then you would get 50% of your spouse's PIA because you can't get all of it while they're living. So here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age is $2,000 a month. Jane, his spouse, would receive or be eligible for 1/2 of that at her full retirement age. She'd get $1,000. Very simple. But if you take your full retirement age benefit, you get 100% at 66 or 67, depending on your age. But if you take it early, you get less, all the way down to 62, where you get 75%. But if you're taking a spousal benefit early, you get less still. Not 75% at 62, but 70%. They're making it worse for you. And then you get these wonderful DRCs, 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%, 132% at 70 if you're born in 1954 or before. But if you file a spousal benefit, there is no delayed retirement credits for delaying. If you wait past full retirement age on your spousal benefit, you're just throwing away money. Worse, If I make a mistake on my own benefit, I can go back even a year and get them to refund me up until for the unclaimed benefits that I should have had up to a year ago, and then start my next benefit the following month. I can't do that with the spousal benefits. Spousal benefits can only be filed going forward, never backwards. You've just thrown away money and there's no way to recoup it. All right, survivor benefits. At the death of the first spouse, a surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit. They can pick or choose one or the other, or they can take the benefit of the deceased. So I don't have to choose mine, I can choose theirs. Or 82.5% of the PIA to the deceased if the deceased filed early. I was talking about solvency and why people are having these conversations telling you to file early. Here's the reason I react to that so badly. In the last 5 years, 65% of Americans have filed prior to age 65. 40% of us, 2 out of 5 of us, have filed at 62, at the earliest possible age they could take it. Why is this a problem? Well, if I file early at 62, thinking, oh, I want that extra benefit, but something happens to me and I pass away, I have a larger benefit than my wife. When I die, guess what? She doesn't keep her benefit, she gets to switch. And the larger benefit, my benefit, goes to her. But what if I took mine at 62? And it's significantly less, 177% less than it would have been if I waited till 70. 25% less than if I had just taken it at full retirement age. Well, if I had waited, first off, if I die prior to full retirement age, she gets the full amount of my full retirement age benefit. If I take it early, she gets that one. This has happened so much, so unexpectedly, because of the bad information that's out there, that Social Security has said, hey, we'll come in and take that 75% and we'll bump it to 82.5%. Not 100%, but it is something to try and help. All right. Most common mistakes: higher wage earner files early, short changes of survivor benefit. Happens all the time. And then both delay past full retirement age. No one claims the spousal benefit. All right. Considerations for divorced individuals. To get a divorced spouse benefit, you must have been married for at least 10 full years in a row to the same person. No stopsies and starties, no switching partners in the middle of the square dance. It's got to be 10 years in a row to the same person. And you can't currently be married. If you divorce and you remarry, you don't have divorced spouse benefits anymore. You have new spouse benefits after 1 year. But if your spouse dies, your second spouse, or you become divorced again, those benefits from the first spouse that you had a 10-year marriage with miraculously appear again and you can use them. Same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. Zero difference between a spousal benefit and a divorced spouse benefit, with one exception that dramatically favors the divorced spouse. If my wife wanted to go in and get next month she'll be able to get a spousal benefit, she couldn't because I hadn't filed yet. Now, once I file, she can go in and get it. But if I haven't filed, she can't get it. But if we had been divorced for 2 years, she doesn't have to wait for me anymore. I don't have to file. After 2 years of divorce, she can get those benefits without me having to file at all. That's the big difference. All right, Bipartisan Budget Act for divorced individuals, same thing. Nothing's changed. You still can't get them. You can't get any bumps. But if you're older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefits as early as age 62. And then listen to this, you can switch to a larger divorced spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches their full retirement age. This can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouses. Now, you don't get them at the same time, but you can switch. So you can go in and take the lowest income one first, take that benefit. And when the other one reaches full retirement age or it's maxed out, you can then switch and get that one. This is a huge opportunity to get some extra money on your benefit. All right, common questions that we get about divorced individuals. Do divorce benefits affect their current spouse or other dependents? No. Their other spouse is going to receive their benefits, even their children, dependent children are going to receive it, unaffected by whether you file or not. And then this is the most common question I get from divorced individuals. Is my ex going to be notified? Are they going to know? No. Just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing your medical information, even with another doctor, without your written permission. They can't share anything about you or your spouse, ex-spouse. Here's the only exception to that. If you're entitled to benefits and you can prove that you had that 10-year marriage, you've got a marriage license and the final divorce decree that say I was married for at least 120 full months, then they are bound to give you whatever information is necessary for you to file. They might not give you everything, but they're going to give you what you need to be able to file. All right, widows and widowers. To get survivor benefits, you must be at least 60 years old. Now I say at least 60 because that's the earliest benefit for retirement that you can ever get. Everybody else has to wait till they're at least 62. But you must have remained unmarried from the death of your spouse until age 60. Now, if you marry the day after you're 60, you still qualify for these benefits, but not if you married the day before. And then you had to have been married for at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse to qualify for these benefits. There are a couple of exceptions. Firemen, law enforcement officers of the United States, members of the United States military armed forces that were killed in the line of duty. Any of those people who might have been killed in the line of duty qualify for exceptions here. You could have been married for a month and you still qualify. All right, I'm going to give you a quick case study. I've got a couple of these for you, but this one is really about timing and understanding why when you file is incredibly important. Now, this is Jane. Her husband was John. He never elected and died at age 64. His benefit at full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, 5 years younger, age 59 when John died. She remains unmarried until age 60, so she qualifies. Jane estimated benefit on her own. This is her benefit, not his. She can't get until she's 62. She's only 60 now. But at 62, it would be $1,197. Let's take a look and see what the options are. I call the first one file without thinking. And I say that because not as a ding, but because it's what most of us do. I mean, we go into Social Security and we ask them the question. We know this because Social Security tells us the most asked question, how much can I get? Well, really, remember what I said, this is not about these days, this is about timing. So it's when should I file to get the most I could get is the most important question you could ask. So they look at her and say, okay, the answer to that question is you don't qualify for any benefit except the widow, the survivor benefit. You can get that because you're now 60, but you're not going to get the $2,150 because at 60, it's going to be reduced to $1,537 a month. She says, I'll take it. And we're going to do very simple math here. No cost of living increases applied to your Social Security. And we're going to look at this as if she's going to live for 25 years to age 85. So that's $1,537 times 300 months, 25 years. She's going to receive a total over her lifetime of $461,100. Strategy one says, hey, maybe you're working, you're earning some income. Why don't you wait 2 years and file your own benefit at age 62? It's only $11.97, but we're just going to keep that benefit until you're 67. And at 67, your survivor benefit will have maxed out. It's no longer 1537, it's $2,150. So switch. That simple plan, by the way, maybe you're working, making $40,000, $50,000 a year. I'm not even counting that money. This gets you almost another $80,000, $538,835. But I think most people will say strategy two makes more sense. Take that benefit, take the survivor benefit at 1537. But pay attention, because that other benefit of yours that's only $11.97 that you can't even get until you're 62 is still your benefit. And every year you delay taking that one, it's growing all the way to your full retirement age. And then afterwards, it's getting those delayed retirement credits, the 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. And if you waited until 70, that benefit is turned into $2,108. That's more than 1537. That's when you switch. That takes your $461,100 all the way up to $563,904. Almost $103,000 more over your lifetime. Look, I don't know how much money each of you have. Some of you have a lot, some of you don't. But who can afford to walk away from $100,000 in their retirement? These are decisions we just can't make, and we have to know so that we don't make them. If you take your benefits at age 62, 63, 64, 65, some of you 66, and you continue to work, if you earn more than $24,480, basically a little more than $2,000, I guess it's $2,040 a month. If you earn more than that, for every $2 more than that, they're going to take back $1 of your Social Security before you reach full retirement age. This is a big deal. It is a bad way to start retirement. Here's the thing. Many of us do this and don't realize until it's too late, because we find out that not only did we take our benefit early, but we ended up having to give it all back. And how do we? This is, by the way, how it works. You continue working, you make too much money. Let's say you make $58,000 a year and you had a $2,000 a month benefit. At the end of the year, you start working on taxes. In July, in April, you file them, and in July, you get a letter from the IRS and from Social Security that says, "Hey, you owe us all $24,000 that you received last year, plus interest." Plus interest. And don't worry, they have a foolproof method. Well, it's not completely foolproof if you die, but it's close. Their foolproof method of collecting that money is, if you don't have it or don't want to pay it, they just stop paying you your Social Security the next year until it's caught up. This is not something you want to find out the hard way. In the year that you turn FRA, full retirement age, most of you 66, or all of you 66 or 67, whatever it is, if you earn in that year more than 65,160 before your FRA date, then for every $3 over that, they're going to take $1 back. Now, if your birthday is in February or March, you probably are not going to hit this problem. But if it's October, November, December, you could. If you earn more than 65,160 before you reach your birthday and you're receiving Social Security, it's a 3-for-1 right back to Social Security. Now, here's the way to avoid this. Either absolutely make sure that you didn't take your Social Security before the date that you're confident that you're not going to earn more than that 65,160, or simply wait until, I mean, if you're on this conference, my guess is that you were born in 1960 or later. If you're born, or if you were at least, you could be in the late 50s. But if you're born in 1960 or later, don't do this until your birthday to be absolutely safe, or make sure that your income is under that 65,160. If you wait till your FRA, you can earn as much money as you want. You can earn $1 billion, and they're not going to take a dollar of your Social Security back. But if you earn a bunch of money, you are going to have to deal with taxes. In fact, you don't have to earn that much to have to deal with taxes these days. Now, I wish I could ask you how many of you knew about Social Security being taxed before this conference tonight. I wish I could ask you, but I can't. But here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of you didn't know, because it's not very well advertised. But it's a serious problem. You remember I said that Congress in 1983 changed a bunch of stuff and targeted baby boomers? This is what happened. So the first thing is they changed your retirement dates. They changed what you got when by changing when you could actually get full retirement benefits. Here's the second thing. They started taxing your income. Now, this bugs me, and it should ought to bug you, because Social Security was set up in 1935 as a tax-free benefit. If you read there's a 12-page bill in 1935 that President Roosevelt signed into law. It was written by him, and it was specifically set up to be tax-free. Why? Because you've already paid tax on it. So what do I mean by that? Well, your contributions to Social Security are made through FICA. That's the deduction. Now, if you're self-employed, you just write a check at the end of the year, and you write a check for both halves. But if you're an employed person, FICA, your employer collects FICA. They match it and then send it in. Those contributions, well, look, if you filled out your own taxes or you used it, nobody gives your employer, your accountant, oh, here's how much I contributed to FICA for my deduction. It doesn't work that way. There is no deduction for FICA. Why? Because that's the taxable portion of Social Security. You pay tax on it. You pay, just like a Roth, you pay tax up front. It goes in and then it grows tax deferred. And when it comes out, it's tax free. That's how Social Security is supposed to work. That's how it was created to work. But in 1983, they set up this thing called a provisional income scale to determine if you should pay tax on your Social Security because you made too much money. Here's the thing. It's not a lot of money. They set it up in 1983, and they did something that almost no other program ever does. They chose never to prorate it, aiming it not at your parents or grandparents, but directly at you, directly at me. And boy, it is working like crazy. It is over the top working like crazy, and it is affecting people like you and me like crazy. Now, if you haven't heard of this and haven't dealt with it yet, I'll tell you why in a minute, but you should know. A lot of people ask, how hard is it to file out taxes on Social Security? It's pretty hard. This is the IRS publication 915. It's 33 pages long with a worksheet to figure out how you're supposed to pay your taxes on Social Security. It's a little complicated. This chart that you see in front of you was created by Congress in 1983. when they passed that bill. This is called the provisional income chart. And it is set up and looks at this from a standpoint of, are you single? Or are you a couple? Are you married? If you're single and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, then 50% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate that you pay. Last dollar of tax, not first dollar. For most of you, 22 or 24%. For some of you, 37%. If you're single and you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. There's this 2,752 page bill is Social Security. 83 of those pages are devoted to taxes. There's this one line in there. I read it once in a while just so I can get a laugh. It says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. I don't know why I find that funny, but it's ridiculous. They were never supposed to tax any of it. If you're a couple, married couple, if you're filing jointly, you could be filing head of household, you could be filing separately. Doesn't matter if your combined income is 32,000, provisional income is 32,000, 50% of your Social Security fully taxable. At 44,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Look, sometimes I get upset about this because it just wasn't created that way. People ask me, why is it such a big deal? Well, if this had been prorated, if that provisional income table had been prorated at the same rate that Social Security has been prorated, that 44,000 would be 142,000. And you and I would not be having this conversation. And I've told you a couple times they targeted baby boomers. Here's what I mean. In 1983, if your grandparents were retired and they had $44,000 of provisional income, they were amongst the 2% wealthiest people in retirement in our country. They were in really good shape. I don't know if you can remember what you made in 1983, but that was a lot of money. That's all changed. Now, let me explain what's in provisional income so you know, and then I'm going to move on. Look, all your W-2 income is counted in provisional income, all of it, 100% of it. All pensions, doesn't matter what kind of pension, disability pension, military pension, private pension, doesn't matter, government pension, they all count 100%. All your wages, all your interest income, all tax-exempt interest income. Some of you have decided you're not going to pay taxes, you're going to get income from municipal bonds in retirement. That's fine, but that income still counts as provisional income. All 1099 income. Doesn't matter. You don't have to work for an employer to do this. If you have a private business or you do casual labor, or you sell real estate, doesn't matter. All of that income counts 100%. All real estate income. Some of you are very savvy tax-wise. You've got these programs where you have rental properties and your Schedule E is done, so you take depreciation and you almost have no income to show. But guess what? All income on your Schedule E counts before depreciation. 100% of it counts as provisional income. All business income. Maybe you have a small business or you're a partner in a larger, maybe a mid-sized business, and you get a K1 at the end of the year. The K1 says this is your participation in the income and profits of the company. Sometimes you get that money, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the company keeps that money and you just get a credit towards future income. But guess what? The K1 still counts as provisional income, whether you got it or not. Sometimes the company keeps the money to do an expansion or buy equipment, or it doesn't matter what they're doing with it. It still counts. Maybe you're like my son-in-law and daughter who overpay their payroll, their contribution in their paychecks. They actually overpay taxes with the intention of getting a big refund. Now, my daughter just did this. I just went and helped her buy a car about a month ago, used car, but she bought a really nice, I think it was a RAV4 Toyota, and she paid with it with her tax refund. And I was like, wow, I get it. I think this is paying the government interest-free loans. I don't like it, but she does it, they do it. But that money that you receive in the year that you receive it is provisional income. All right, here's the interesting ones. Do you have an IRA, a 401k, a 401a, a 401b, a 403b, a 457, a SEP, SERP, a SLRP, any tax deferred account where you put money in and got a deduction for it, it grew tax deferred, but when you take it out, it's taxable. 100% of that counts as provisional income. Not the amount that you put in, but the amount that you take out. Now, look, I'm not dissing those accounts. Many of my clients have, most of them have some form of those, and many of them have huge wealth in them. But every one of those is the problem. It's the real problem here. If you have a couple $100,000 sitting in a 401k, you transfer to a 401 to an IRA when you retire, or maybe before that, so that you can invest it, protect it. But when you start you take it out to live on, that money is going to create a problem for you because it's going to be added to your taxable income, and it is probably almost certainly going to make you pay tax on your Social Security. Something that when it was created, you were never supposed to pay tax on. And that's the rub. That's the problem here. Most of us don't even see this coming because we haven't touched those accounts yet. Most of us wait until RMDs, required minimum distributions, at age 73. And when we hit those and we're forced to take that money out, why do you think the government forces to take it out? I used to hear people say, oh, so that we have to pay tax on it. No, so you have to pay tax on that and your Social Security. That's the problem here. And it is wreaking havoc. Now, some of you are doing the mental math to figure out how much do I have. Let me add the last one in here that's going to really make you perk up. 50% of your Social Security income, gross Social Security income, that includes the amount that you pay to Medicare, counts as provisional income. Think about that. Let's say you are a married couple, one of you has $3,000 a month, the other has $2,000 a month. That's $5,000 a month, 12 months, that's $60,000. Half of that is 30. It's actually probably closer to 32 if you count the amount that you are actually paying towards Medicare. You're paying taxes on Social Security before another nickel of this. You haven't even looked at your assets yet. This is what's causing and wreaking havoc. And it's absolutely, I don't want to say it's completely preventable, but some planning here can make an incredible difference for you. I'm going to do a last case study here. I think this is maybe the most important thing I can show you this evening. This is a married couple, age 64 and 62, very typical client. Just over $34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if both file at age 62. Now, that's not a lot, but it's enough to get them in trouble. Their starting retirement was right around $752,000 in 401ks and IRA assets. Now, some of you are saying, that's it? This couple with only $752,000 has a horrific tax problem. Some of you are saying, that's a lot of money, Dave. $700,000, that's a lot of money. This couple with that much money also has a serious running out of money problem. And we're going to take their assets and give them a 6% annual return We're going to figure 3% annual inflation. They need $70,000 per year in inflation adjusted after tax income. This is so typical. And we assume they're going to live to this respectively 86 and 89. Here's what it looks like. If they file at 62, take their income early. That's when they want to retire. Don't misunderstand me. They want to retire. But they're walking away from $186,496 in Social Security. That's why it's in the red there. And they need every nickel of it. Every nickel of that they need to not wind up in serious economic problems. This is a cash flow. This is what it looks like. The blue bars are the Social Security. The orange bars, that is their 401ks, their IRAs, their qualified assets. All $752,000. The black graded line, that's the income need. That's the $70,000 of inflation adjusted after tax income. At the end of the orange bars, 2/3 of the way through retirement, that white space is nothing. They're out of money. This couple started their retirement with $750,000. 2/3 of the way through retirement, they're dead broke. All they've got, they're living on Social Security. Don't misunderstand me. They're not broke. They've got Social Security, right? But I cannot explain. There are no words to explain the devastation to their lifestyle when this happens. It's. I've seen people come to me asking for help. At this point, it's beyond help. At that point, the only way to fix this is early, not late. Let me show you a corrected cash flow. This is somebody who sat down and looked at this and had an advisor that looked at it and said, "Here's what you need to do. This is the change. This is the same client. It's the same money. There isn't an added anything. Same investments. Everything is the same. You tell me, would you rather have this cash flow or this one?" Look at first off, they make it to the end. Look at the difference here. Look at the very beginning. Those orange bars are their 401ks, their IRAs. They have never paid tax on them. When they take them out, it's only fair. They're going to pay tax on them. But the blue bars, they have paid tax on once. Here, they're going to pay tax on it twice because they took it out at the same time and caused themselves to hit the provisional income trap and not understand what they did to themselves. And once they cross that threshold, it's really hard to back it off. It's not impossible, but you really need a plan. Here's the difference. Look, folks, it is 14 more years of portfolio life. There's another third in retirement. It is more than $100,000 less in taxes. It is a massive difference because they sat down and figured out how to deal with this before they filed their Social Security. Look, if you haven't done this already, if you look at your statement, there's no cost of living applied. Social Security is never going to project out what their cost of living is going to be next year or the year after. But you need somebody to do that, not for 5 years or 10, but for the rest of your retirement to figure out what it looks like. And your statement also assumes that you live or you file at 62 or at 70 or at your full retirement age. And most people don't take any of those. And maybe the thing that bugs me the most about your statement is your record. It doesn't include your spousal coordination. It doesn't. My wife and I have been married almost 50 years. It doesn't. It looks at her and looks at me like we're two ships passing in the financial world in the middle of the night on a river. Like we don't know each other. My wife and I have joint accounts and everything, joint financial statements. We have checking accounts and cars and houses and investment accounts, but they're all in our names jointly. We don't have separate money. But Social Security won't tell me how to coordinate with her, which is crazy. And it will not, cannot, impossible to get advice. Social Security advisors, Social Security clerks are taught on day one of training that they're not allowed to tell you what to do or why you should do it. They'll answer questions, but you better ask the right question. AARP says whether you're close to retiring or turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings every year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. It's also important to be aware that there's a statute of limitations on correcting some of those errors. It might already be too late. All right, every time I do one of these workshops, I always offer a personal complimentary, another word for free, Social Security analysis. I'm going to do the same thing tonight. I'm going to tell you three things. I'm going to tell you what's included in that, what you can expect. I'm going to tell you who's going to do it for you, and you're very fortunate tonight. And then I'm going to tell you why we do it. Why do I offer this? So you understand what we're doing. All right, here we go. Here's first thing. Very first thing. If you're filing Social Security, the first question you got to ask is, what's the projected lifetime? How long am I going to live? And what's the break even if I take it early? What does that mean? What is the plan here? And how do I make sure that I'm not making just a simple math error? We'll work that out for you and show you in writing exactly what that means. We'll give you something that's easy to use and implement. Not complicated, but easy to see, easy to understand. And it'll look at alternatives and shortfalls. What if I don't have enough money, Dave? What are my options? How can you fix that? Is there anything I can do? And what about alternatives? What else can I do? What are my choices here? We'll walk you through those. And then what about income, retirement income, cash flow, and tax analysis? Can you save me money in taxes? Yeah. Can you look at my cash flow? Does it make sense? And then what about my income plan? There are two issues with income planning. One is, am I over planning my income? Am I projecting an income that's unreasonable for the assets I have? We'll give you a clear understanding of what that means. And the other one is, am I underestimating? This is almost worse. I talked to people all the time. I had a woman that we were dealing with about maybe it's been 3 or 4 weeks now, who came to us. She was 79. Normally we see people earlier than that. And she has a bunch of money. But she didn't want to have a bunch of money. Don't misunderstand me. Everybody wants to have a bunch of money. But nobody told her and made her understand that she has way more than she is ever going to need in her lifetime. And if they had told her that 10 years ago at 69 or 15 years ago at 64, she would have had a very different retirement. She would have spent a big chunk of it. She would have enjoyed it. She could have taken advantage of that. But at almost 80, it's too late for her. And she knows it. And the regret when she got it, when she understood it, was deep. She felt cheated. That is just something you don't want to have happen to you. And what about Roth conversions? Notice on the provisional income list, the one thing I didn't mention is Roth accounts. Roth accounts don't count as provisional income. So should I have them? I don't know. Maybe. Good chance you should. But how do I know how much? How do I know how much to convert? If I over convert, I'm going to spend too much in taxes. If I under convert, I'm not going to get the full benefit. How do I know what that number is? We'll show you. We'll work it out for you. We can come up with an exact number. And then what about coordinating everything? People come to me all the time. I have a plan, Dave. I have a plan. I'll ask to see the plan and they don't have the plan. Oh, my advisor has it. Did you see it? He didn't give you a copy? No, I don't have a copy. Okay. Well, how do you know you have a plan? Well, he told me that this is how it's going to work. I said, well, did he coordinate everything? Has he looked at your Social Security? No. Has he looked at your taxes? No. What about qualified assets, non-qualified assets, IRAs, 401ks, pension plans, life insurance, TSPs? Has he looked at every possible nook and cranny of assets that you're going to use for retirement and coordinated them? I had somebody that had two advisors. Maybe this is 3 or 4 weeks ago. Maybe it was a month and a half ago. They had two advisors. They had a big chunk of money with one, a little smaller chunk, but a big chunk of money with the other. And they said, well, I did this because I wanted diversity. But when I put the accounts together and I looked at them, about 80% of the assets were in the same stuff. Index funds that were having the exact same thing happen to them. Nobody coordinated them. They didn't talk to each other. They don't want to talk to each other. The other one, each one would just like the other one to go away. It is so important to have a plan. All right. If you haven't done this yet, go to www.ssa.gov. That's the Social Security government website. This is where you get your statement. If you haven't done this already, it'll take you about 5 minutes to log in and set up an account that you'll have with you for the rest of your life. And then you can download your statement, and then you'll be able to schedule a complimentary meeting. I'm going to explain what's in that consultation. I'm going to give you two options tonight. Option one is everything I just explained. It is a complete tax and retirement analysis, a coordination of assets, a coordination of everything, coming up with an idea exactly what you can do to save money and spend less in taxes and have more money and reduce the risk of overpaying tax on your Social Security, as well as everything else. It's what I call the whole kit and caboodle. So my mother used to say that all the time. It's everything. If you have money in like a 401k or an IRA or some tax deferred account, this is what you need to look at to have a coordinated plan. Here's option two. Some of you don't have money in 401ks or IRAs. In fact, your biggest asset is your Social Security. It's why you're on here tonight. For you, it's what I said on that first widow example. It's a timing question. It's not about taxes, because if you only have Social Security, it is statistically impossible to be taxed on that from provisional income. Can't be. You can't be. So what you need is a timing question. The entire reason I've written and authored the workbook is to help you find that time. That's what the workbook is. Now, if you take option one, we'll give you a workbook too, but we're going to do that for you. It's no big deal. It's not the most important thing. It's coming up with a plan. But if your only concern is when should I do this, the workbook is what you need. That's option two. That's the difference between two. Option one is a planning thing. If you have assets that need some sort of a plan for taxes, then that's what that is. Option two is the workbook. Now, I told you I would explain who's going to do this for you tonight. I'm going to ask our tech team to, at the bottom of the chat, put in a link so that you can get to option one and option two. Once you fill those out, it'll either open up and let you download the workbook. There it is. He's also going to put a QR code up for you. There it is. The QR code, just hold your phone up or to get take that rectangular yellow or orange thing. Just press that. It'll take you right to it. Again, option one is the planning meeting. Option two is the workbook alone. I'm going to tell you who is going to do this for you. I told you that I would do that. And then we're going to get into the Q&A. So look, you're very fortunate tonight. One of my favorite people in the world is one of my advisors. His name is Chris Brand. Let me tell you Chris's background. Chris started off after getting his degree and master's. He wound up as a teacher, as a professor at Marygrove College. He was there for a while, honing his skills as a teacher. But the reason he taught is because he loves finance and math. Interestingly, it drew him out. The teaching people wasn't as satisfying to him as even helping people with their taxes. So he researched and looked at it and realized he wanted to be in the financial service business. He wanted to help people plan for things like retirement and investment management. And he decided to get credentialed to do that. Now, Chris is credentialed. He's on top of his degrees. He's gone to the American College of Financial Planning, and the American College. He's gotten a APMA, an accredited portfolio management advisor designation. He's gotten a CRPC, a chartered retirement planning designation, and Chris carries the same NSSA designation for Social Security, the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. On top of that, one of the things that I think sets Chris apart is that his love for teaching drove him to do one other thing that I wish I could do. Chris is a golf pro. He's a professional golf pro, a teaching pro, it's called. Chris is gifted in the art of helping people learn how to be better golfers. Now, if you're a golfer, you already know it's the hardest thing in the world. It's not hard to golf, it's just hard to get better at it. And to have the skills to help somebody do that is amazing to me because it takes unbelievable patience and understanding of how people hear you and learn. And that's what Chris has done. He has taught himself to be this incredible active listener. He's just gifted at it. I remember a couple of quotes that I heard. Tiger Woods said this a few years ago. It's been probably 15 years ago. He was asked, "Why do you have a golf pro? You're so good." He was the number one golfer in the world at the time. So why do you have a coach? Why is that so necessary? And why do you? Because he said, every golfer needs a coach, no matter how good you are. Why? Because he sees stuff I don't see. I have blind spots, just like all of us do. And then my favorite golfer growing up was Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear. Here's his quote. He says, "The reason good players need a coach is that golf is 10% physical and 90% mental." We don't see everything. It's not about physics all the time. It's not about the mechanics of your swing. It's about who you are and understanding what's going on. And a coach can see stuff that others can't. And that's what makes Chris so good at this. Now, if you're on here and maybe you're a wife and your husband isn't here, he'll love to hear that Chris is a golf pro. But look, you're going to love him and enjoy him. He is absolutely gifted at this, and he loves to do it. He loves to help people. I hope you take advantage of it. Now, I told you I would do one last thing. Let me look at the time. I apologize. I've run a little over, but I said I would do this, and I want to do it. Why do I do this? Look, I have this incredibly successful company that I own with my son. We have exceeded our wildest dreams. Here's how I did that. Every single client of ours, not everyone, we have a couple of referrals. Oftentimes, our clients will refer their children and say, please help them. Even though it's not what we typically do, they want that done. So we do. But every one of our clients at the retirement age came to us one of two ways. Either they were referred, or the vast majority of them did exactly what you're doing. They watched one of these workshops, and then they decided to meet with somebody like Chris. And they went through that. No, no obligation, no anything other than see what we do. Because I believe if you show people incredible good work, they'll want more. That's it. My entire business is based on that monument and philosophy. And I hope that you'll respect that I'm not trying to sell you anything right now. I'm just trying to show you who we are. Because I believe that's the best way to grow my business. And I will tell you, I'm not just a believer in it. I have the proof of it. Our company has grown at about 5 times the rate that other companies grow in our space. And it's because we just do stuff really well. And when you meet with Chris, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. Look, I'm a huge Sam's Club, not Sam's Club, Costco. I just talked to my daughter, who's a member of Sam's Club. I'm a Costco fan, and I'm a little fanatic about it. Here's the reason I do it. I walk in on a Saturday morning. There's probably 40 people around the store cooking, microwaving, frying, cooking, baking, something for me to try. And I love to try stuff. Sometimes, I mean, we don't even eat lunch that day because you get more than a lunch just doing that. But I try it because when I try something I really like, I want to get it. My wife and I have a thing. When I try something, if I get a big smile on my face, she doesn't even look at what it is. She just says, okay, we'll take one. And if I nudge her, that means 2. It's just how we operate. I like to try stuff before I go in. That's what I'm trying to ask. Try it. I bet you're going to love it. Not like it, love it. All right. Enough said. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to ask our tech team to pull up the Q&A, and we will get through, hopefully we'll get through all of these. Here we go. Carolyn, I am 62. Husband is 61. He is still working. Oops, that disappeared on me. Tech? Okay. Husband is, you're 62. He's 61. He is still working till 67. My Social Security will be quite a bit less than his. My rough estimate says I should have started mine months ago, but a consultant said no. Well, I don't know why they said no, Carolyn. Here's the thing. If you take yours, you've locked it in. That's probably what they're saying. And if you delay, you can get his. By delaying, you have to wait until he's taking his before you can get half of his. And that's probably the reason they're saying that. But that's the answer. I don't. If you're meeting with Chris, he can do a little more in depth for you. If you have some assets in 401ks or IRAs like that, I'd highly recommend it. But otherwise, the workbook will suggest a time. But my guess is that's what it is. But thanks for your question. This is Jeanette. Thank you for the workbook in advance. You're welcome. This is, I think it's Teresa. Widow benefits possibly intern 60. I'm assuming I turn 60 in November or next year if I can afford to. Widow benefits possibly intern 60 November or next year if I can afford to. You're suggesting maybe wait, or if you can afford to wait. If you're turning 60 next year, the earliest you can get those is at 60. So there's no choice. No choice in waiting. You have no choice. You have to wait till you're at least 60 to be able to qualify. I'm assuming that's what you're wondering. But yeah, there's no benefit, retirement benefit, including the widow benefit, before age 60. But you can go in a month before and get it to start on the month that you're turning 60. Okay. All right, Karen, 62 years old and want to know if I take Social Security and make more than the 24,000, how do they take back the $1 every $2 for every $2 they make over the 24? They simply bill you, and then if you don't respond, they take it out of your Social Security check, the ongoing one, until it's made up. They'll simply stop paying you. Now, in extreme cases, or if it's a smaller amount, they'll take half sometimes. You can negotiate with them, but uh, I'd say that works about half the time. You're going to have to prove some hardship to be able to get that to happen. But that's how. Okay. I turned 66 in June. I'm in poor health, so thinking I'll file in December instead of waiting until 67. My husband is 67 and plans to work one more year. Turns June 66. And I don't see your age. I'm assuming you said the 66 because you are, um, that's your age, but you're turning full retirement age next year. So you're going to take a little bit of a ding for taking it early, but it's far less because you waited till only 1 year before. So that's not necessarily a bad plan. And here's the thing: if you do that, um, you have some options. Um, by the way, oh, I need to go back to I think it was Carolyn that had the husband that was retiring later, and she was thinking about taking her Social Security. I do have some input for her. So if you could pull that up after this as well. But that's fine. You're going to be 66. You're going to get almost your full benefit. You're not going to get any DRCs, but if you need it, you need it. And if you're in poor health, I understand you probably need it because income is gone. I get that. Totally makes sense. 62 and 60. Yeah, this is Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, here's the good news. If you take yours at 62, if your husband is not, as long as he's working, you can't take a spousal benefit. So if your benefit is less than one half of his, let's say he works until 67 at his full retirement age, and then he takes his Social Security, and his benefit is, let's say it's $2,000 a month. Half of that would be $1,000 a month. If your benefit is less than that, you can switch at that time. So I don't know what your expert told you, but there's no reason to wait in that case. If you're 62, you can take your benefit and then simply switch. Now you're going to get a slightly less benefit by having taken your benefit early, because your spousal benefit is actually a combination of your benefit and his benefit. It's very complex, but the book will explain it. But you'll be able to do that and get more. So that's good news. Okay. Lisa, turned 63 in March and planning to take Social Security at full retirement age at 67 in 2030. So if the proposal, it, it so if the proposals get voted on and whether passed in early 2027, when do you anticipate that those would possibly be effective? Well, the, the proposals that I'm talking about would only make sure that you get benefits, and that they wouldn't be lessened in 2034. So it would go into effect immediately. But the only other benefit I could wonder about, or proposal that you're talking about, is raising the actual 6.2% to a higher amount. And that would go into effect probably the following year. So I hope that answers your question. All right, this is Gene. Thank you for the workbook. You're welcome. Okay, Jeanette, how would you locate an NSSA certified advisor? Right on their site. Right on their site. I think it's called premiernssa.com, something like that. but that's about the only option I know. I think typically people ask that question because they think, I'd like to get somebody close to me that I can go see personally. Listen, I know this is weird, but we chose. Look, I was really worried during COVID that this wouldn't work, that we wouldn't be able to service people correctly, be doing it online. I think you'd be shocked at how much better our clients give us 5 stars all the time. Here's the reason: our typical client sees us 4 times a year. They don't have to leave their living room or their basement if they want to. And a typical client of a typical one-on-one firm that meets in person sees people once a year. We don't think that's enough. We way over service. Here's the other thing. There's a survey done. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. 64% of us, after we retire, move out of state. At some point, you're going to go to Texas or California or uh, Florida or South Carolina or Georgia or something. You're going to get tired of shoveling snow or do something. You're going to move. And when you do, you've just automatically either done one of two things. You're looking for a new advisor. If you're 75 when you do that, it's a terrible time to do that. You want to have that in place and done so that you can stay. Or you're dealing with your old advisor in the exact same way that he's not experienced in, but that's all we do. Not all we do. I mean, we still have clients at our local offices, but the vast majority of our clients come from when we do Zoom. But that's the answer. But you can look them up, Premier NSSA. Thank you, valuable information. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate it. Brian, Briar. Is it Briar? Yeah, Briar. What a cool name. Thank you. You're welcome. Jeanette, very helpful content. I will watch this again when it's offered. We'll work through the workbook at home. Work first. Thanks again. Good deal. You're welcome. Lisa, we chose option one. We'll get the forms to complete before the appointment. And when will we receive them? You'll get an email. You'll get an email. Thanks for that. You're going to enjoy, Chris. Carolyn, thanks for the presentation and workbook. Situation a little more complicated than above. Ran out of characters in chat. Yes, we have some assets. We look forward to talking to Chris. Great. You're going to love it. Nipper, the money that they take from you, if you earn more than 24,000, I understand they give that back to you at your FRA. Would you like? How would how would that distribution work? It doesn't. You don't get it back. What they're trying to say is that it's like you didn't take Social Security that year, and so what you get back is the increase if they take it all. If they take partial, you get nothing. But if they completely take it so that it's like you didn't get Social Security that year, then it's simply like you postponed taking it a year. That's all. But there's no refund of the money they took. Sorry for the bad news. Diane, I'm 61, divorced, not remarried, still working, and making over 24K. Should I claim X Social Security next year? Was told benefits would be held until August. Yeah, probably because of your birthday, I'm guessing. But the answer is, if you're making more than the 24,000, it doesn't matter whether you're taking yours or your ex. They're going to take back both. If you're over it, for every $2 over that 24,500, they're going to, or 24,400, they're going to take back a $1 per benefit. Doesn't matter whether it's yours or your spousal benefit. So that you have to figure out. Elizabeth, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, this is Lisa. This is in reference to my prior question. Example of FRI for me that is currently 67. Could it possibly change to 70 or 72 if that proposal passes? Oh, I see what you're saying. The answer is anything is possible, but that would be the least likely thing that I could imagine. Social Security has never made a change that affected somebody's benefits after they reached the age of 55. At over 60, at 67, they would not have the guts to do that. Not possible. And since that one is, I think, the least likely one to change, because it doesn't really fix the problem, I wouldn't worry about that very much at all. But hope that helps you. Okay, Kathy. My husband is 7 years younger than me. I'm 67. Do I only get my Social Security until he retires? I don't have much being a stay-at-home mom for many years. Yeah, he has to actually take his benefit for you to get the spousal, which is half of his. So yeah, you can file your own, but remember this: it will lower the amount that you get at full retirement age, at his full retirement age, because you're taking it early, and a part of it is going to be your benefit, and then the other part is part of his. So it is going to affect you some, but it is a way to do that. You can take yours early and then take his later. The 24,400 won't affect you because it's your income, not his, that would affect that benefit. If you're not working, pensions or anything that don't affect it, just earned wages. Great question. All right. Lisa, thank you. You're welcome. Great. Okay. That looks like the end of the questions. All right. I am going to sign off here. I'm going to wish you all a good night. May you have great planning. If you're meeting with Chris, you're going to love it. I get such great feedback. He is just wonderful. But I wish you good night, good planning. May you all have a well earned, peaceful, beneficial retirement. I'll say good night for now. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying with me. Talk to you soon.